Guys, before we hop into this story, I have to let you know. When I was reading this story, I thought it sounded so ridiculous. I thought for sure this is a fake story. I mean, there's no way this is real. It sounded to me like it was some fantasy book. But as I was getting towards the end of the story, I started reading comment after comment after comment, and I came across one specific comment that literally brought the whole story together in my brain. It was from OP's brother. We don't even hear about OP's brother in the entire story. And, well, I don't want to exactly ruin it, but I'm going to tell you. OP was experiencing a mental break, schizophrenia. OP has been admitted to a mental health hospital, so everything you hear in this story was basically a figment of OP's imagination. None of it happened. It was all in her mind. So, guys, keep that in mind when you're listening to the story, because I'm going to be honest with you, this one was nuts. I know how this sounds. I've reread this post 4 times and I sound absolutely insane. But I need outside perspective because I genuinely don't know if I'm losing my mind or if something deeply messed up has been happening on my street for longer than I've lived here. Well, I'm going to just try to lay this out chronologically, but there are so many deets that only make sense in hindsight, so please bear with me. I moved to this neighborhood 3 years ago. It's one of those suburban streets where everybody knows everyone. You know, block parties happen like clockwork. People wave from the porches when you leave for work. The kind of place that feels almost too coordinated, if that makes sense. Like everyone got the same handbook on how to be a good neighbor. I always chalked it up to an HOA energy or just suburban culture because I'm not really from the suburban lifestyle. But there was always something slightly off about it that I could not name. My neighbor Jason lives in the house with this overgrown ivy 2 doors down. He's been here for over a decade, they say, maybe longer. He's quiet, quaint, keeps to himself and does not come to block parties at all. But he's always present. Like if I'm talking, he's going to be taking out trash at 7 a.m., he's watering plants. If I'm getting mail at noon, he's trimming the hedges. If there's a gathering in someone's yard, he's standing at the edge of his property line watching. Not in some weird, oblivious, creepy way, just observing. I used to think he was just awkward, lonely, maybe a widow. But Jason knows everything about everyone. My friend Megan, Katie, Brooke used to joke that he was the neighborhood archivist because he's always seemed to know who was fighting with who bought what car, who was planning to move, and we laughed about it. He wasn't gossiping or spreading rumors, he was just cataloging information like he was mentally filing it away. About 6 months ago, things started feeling weird. Jason made comments about my morning routine that stuck with me. I was leaving for work one day, maybe 5 minutes earlier than usual because I had an early meeting, and he was outside with his dog. He said almost casually, "Oh, when you leave at 7:46 instead of 7:43, the street rhythm is different." What? I laughed it off. I mean, what else do you do with a comment like that? But it did bother me, because it meant he's been tracking when I leave my house down to the minute. After that, I started noticing whenever I changed my routines, leaving earlier, taking out recycling bin on a different day, wearing a different bag, Jason would be outside every single time like he's been waiting to see what I would do differently. Then there were the objects. See, small things started appearing by my mailbox, always arranged very deliberately. A chess pawn, a dried leaf folded in half, a bottle cap standing on its side. I assumed it was kids just playing some game, like 6-7. But the placement was too precise, too intentional. Each object felt symbolic in a way I couldn't articulate. Around the same time, I noticed my neighbors were acting strange. So last spring, Tyler, who is another neighbor, suddenly blew up at Brandon over a missing package. I mean, he exploded screaming accusations, threatening to call the law. It was so out of character for both of them. The whole block whispered about it for weeks, but the whispers felt weird, like everybody was following some invisible script about how they were supposed to react. I can't describe it. Katie starts acting weird with me too. She was cold and distant for a few days, then suddenly overly friendly the next week. I asked her once if everything was okay. She just gave me this blank look like she didn't know what I was talking about. But the pattern kept repeating. Distance, then smothering attention, then distance again. It felt scheduled. Jason started asking me strange philosophical questions when we would cross paths. If you had to choose, would you trust loyalty or instinct? Do you think people act freely or just react to their environment? I thought he was just one of those, intellectual types, I guess. I laughed it off, but he would watch my reaction like he was taking notes. One afternoon, I caught him staring through his blinds at my home. When he saw me looking back, he didn't wave or look embarrassed. He just slowly lowered the blinds, still staring. That image stayed with me, the, deliberateness of it all. Brooke mentioned she found a note under her doormat that said, "Trust the ally, not the instigator." She thought it was a prank. I didn't say anything, but I remember Jason's chess pawn by my mailbox. I saw Jason walking his dog one evening wearing a lanyard with laminated cards clipped to it, so I only caught a glimpse of one word printed on it. It said facilitator. I remember thinking it was probably some work thing, but who wears work badges while walking their dog at 8 p.m.? At a block party last summer, Jason stood by the grill the entire time, not eating or talking, just watching people interact, and when someone spilled a drink, he muttered something under his breath. I was close enough to hear it, unexpected variable, like he was annoyed that something happened outside his prediction. The breaking point, or I guess the moment I started seriously questioning reality, was when I found an envelope in my mailbox that said, "Your move, Lauren." Inside was a blank card, no message, no signature, just a blank white card. I think I should move. Well, the same day, Tyler started another fight with Brandon, same accusations. Same timing as before, like a scene. I stood in my yard watching it unfold and felt this overwhelming sense of deja vu. Except it was not a memory, it was pattern recognition. Jason complimented me once on diffusing tension between Megan and Brooke. The thing is, I never told anyone about it. It happened in my backyard during a small hangout, just the three of us. Jason wasn't there, he shouldn't have known. When I asked how he knew about it, he smiled and said some people are meant to stabilize the board. The board? He said it like it was literal talk. This guy is a creep. More objects kept appearing. A marble, a toy soldier, a piece of sidewalk chalk. Always in the same spot by the mailbox, always perfectly placed. So I joked about it to Megan and she went pale. She told me Jason used to leave objects by her door too, before she moved down the street last year. I asked why she moved, and she wouldn't answer, just said I needed to change positions. I started paying deeper attention, and I overheard Jason talking quietly to Eric one morning. "Your next choice matters, don't deviate this time." Eric nodded like he understood, and I wanted to ask what the hell that meant, but something stopped me. People start pausing mid-conversation when I walk up, looking at me with this expression I couldn't read, pity, fear, expectation. The street felt like it was a stage, and I was walking into scenes already in progress. Then Jason left a laminated card on my porch. It said, "Observation phase complete." That's it, nothing else. So I started locking my door twice at night, checking windows. I had this growing, inescapable feeling that I was inside something I didn't understand, that I've been inside it for too long. I don't know if I'm overreacting. I don't know if I'm losing my mind. I don't know if Jason is just an eccentric weirdo, and I'm connecting dots that do not exist, but it feels too coordinated, too precise, like everyone on the street is moving in patterns I can almost see but can't quite prove. Let me just ask you guys, am I the a-hole for thinking my neighbor is running some kind of messed up social experiment? I don't know what to do. Update number 1, I confronted my neighbor and I wish I didn't. Well, I can't believe I'm actually writing this. I can't believe any of this is real, but I need to document it somewhere because I feel like I'm disappearing into something that I don't know how to get out of. After my original post, several people told me to just talk to Jason directly, confront him, ask him what the hell's going on, so I did. I wish I didn't. It started because Brooke came to my door crying. She accused me of spreading a rumor that her husband was cheating. I had no idea what she was going on about. I've never said anything about her husband. I barely know the guy. She showed me an anonymous note left on her windshield. It says, "Lauren says your husband is cheating. Act accordingly." I tried to defend myself, but Brooke was hysterical. Then mid-rant, she said something that made my blood go cold. "I was assigned to confront you before the block meeting." Assigned? She looked confused, like she hadn't realized what she said, then she apologized and left quickly. Katie showed up an hour later with brownies and this overly concerned expression. She just kept asking if I was okay and if I needed something. If I wanted to talk, I don't know, it felt like she was an actor. Wrong. I finally asked her why she was suddenly so attentive. She leaned in and whispered, "I'm supposed to build rapport before the shift." I asked, "What? The shift?" She didn't answer, she just smiled and left me the brownies. That's when I marched over to Jason's house and I knocked. He answered immediately, like he's been expecting me, and he smiled, this patient knowing smile, and invited me inside. I've never been inside his house before, not one. The first thing I saw was a 3D model of our entire neighborhood set up on a massive table in his living room. Every house was detailed. Every tree, every driveway, every mailbox. It was an architectural level precision. And there was wooden figures on each property, little painted pieces like game tokens. I recognized them immediately. One for Megan, one for Brooke, one for Tyler, one for Brandon, one for Katie, one for Eric, and one for me. Painted red, larger than the others. Jason had laminated cards tacked to a corkboard on the wall. Said Loyalist, Katie, Investigator, Tyler, Wild Card, Eric, Passive Threat, Brandon. And at the top, in big letters, was Final Boss Lauren. There was a thick folder pinned underneath my card. I couldn't speak, I just stared at him. Jason explained it calmly, clinically, like he was describing a research project. He called it his neighborhood simulation game. He's been running behavioral scenarios for years, manipulating events to observe how people react. He's been doing it for a decade. He showed me binders, dozens of them, organized by years, filled with charts, timelines, and notes. He detailed how he planted hints to push Megan and Brooke into conflict phases, how he staged small thefts by moving people's porch decorations to create suspicion, and how he wrote anonymous letters to make alliances and rivalries. There was a timeline labeled Phase 3, Lauren's confrontation arc. The dates matched exactly days I fought with neighbors over misunderstandings I thought were natural. None of this was natural. It was orchestrated by Jason. He created all of it. He said he chose me as the final boss because I was the only one who thinks logically enough to break the simulation if she would be to notice early. He said it like it was a compliment. My designated role, including something he called escalation events and a final phase showdown, it was written like a psychological battle plan. I asked him why. This is so weird. Why? Why the hell was he doing this? He said people are predictable until you nudge them. I studied the nudges. He described the next phase calmly. Neighbors would begin isolating me, testing my responses, and he said my refusal to engage in the conflict cycle would determine how long it lasted. He talked about me like I was a character, not a person, so I demanded he stops. He looked at me with something almost like pity and said it's too late for that, everybody's in position. Well, at that moment I was about to leave, call the police, do something, but he opened a filing cabinet and showed me more binders, each one labeled with a neighbor's name. Mine was the thickest. Inside were charts tracking my morning routine down to the minute. Documentation of my friendship, arguments, reconciliations, my moods, my habits, 3 years of data. I realized everyone on this street had been puppets, and I was the central target for whatever twisted finale he had planned. He asked me to cooperate, to finish the scenario cleanly, like a director asking an actor not to break character. I left. I didn't run. I walked out slowly, feeling like I was underwater. Jason didn't follow me. He just stood in his doorway watching. When I got home, there was a chalk mark on my sidewalk, a small circle. I'd seen the same symbol in the binder. It was labeled initiation. I tried to warn people. First I went to Megan, then I went to Brooke, Katie. None of them believed me. They all said variations of, Jason? He just gives advice sometimes. He's not a weirdo. They couldn't see it or they didn't want to. I found more objects on my porch, a toy crown, a broken chess king. Both had appeared in Jason's notes as part of the final boss arc. Twice I woke up to find neighbors standing on their lawns, staring towards my home. They didn't wave, didn't speak, just stood there. Then they all disappeared at once like they got the signal. Brooke later admitted she didn't know why she was afraid of me, she just had a feeling. Eric confessed that he got a letter telling him to protect Megan from Lauren's influence, and the letter was typed unsigned, Jason style. I caught Jason leaving something on Brandon's porch at 3 a.m. I started watching. He saw me watching and waved casually like it was completely normal to be on someone's porch at 3 a.m. The chalk mark outside my house changed every day. Circle, triangle, spiral. I checked Jason's notes and it matched his escalation sequence. I tried to catch him in the act but never did. And he's right. Technically, he hasn't done anything illegal. I mean, he's manipulating people into believing certain things until they behave accordingly. But he never forced it. He just designed the condition. I realized I wasn't trapped physically. I was trapped in a narrative. I don't really know what to do at this point. I can't prove anything without sounding insane, and Jason is still out there watching. The simulation hasn't stopped, it's just evolved. Update number 2. It doesn't end when you refuse to play. Hey guys, so yeah, it's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I keep starting this post and deleting it because I don't know how to explain what's going on. Or maybe that's, well, what's not happening. Because nothing dramatic really occurred. No confrontation, no climax, no resolution, and I just feel like that's somehow worse. So I stopped participating entirely. Stopped talking to neighbors, just stopped going to gatherings, really stopped everything. Stopped engaging. I thought if I just refused to play along, the game would stop. That Jason would have no choice but to stop, but oh man, I was wrong. Jason did not escalate, he just stopped interacting, too. He doesn't approach me, doesn't leave objects, doesn't make comments, he just watches from his window, that's it. And somehow that's more terrifying than everything before, because the neighbors haven't stopped. One by one, they started living things on the lawn. First it was a colored flag, lanterns, chalk symbols, and when I asked Megan about the yellow flag outside her home, she looked confused. Said she didn't remember putting it there. Katie had a lantern she couldn't explain, and Eric had chalk markings on his driveway, geometric patterns he claimed that he's never seen before. I realized Jason spent years conditioning them. Little cues, repeated patterns, subtle reinforcements, I'd say. They're acting on programming they don't remember receiving. Brandon walked towards my house one morning. I watched from the window and he stopped exactly 3 feet from my mailbox, stood there for a full minute, then turned around and walked back. When I asked him about it later, he didn't remember the walk. Just said he felt pulled to check something but couldn't remember what. At this point, Megan was apologizing for being distant lately. Said it felt required, but she didn't know why. Katie mentioned we were close to the climax now, and when I asked what she meant, her face went completely blank. She genuinely didn't know what she just said. I mean, this is getting creepy. Jason placed a new card in his window facing the street. It was something that said end game. Active. I spent 3 nights sitting by my window watching shadows move between houses. I was losing my mind. I was setting up cameras, hearing quiet conversations that stopped the instant I stepped outside. One night I counted 7 neighbors were outside between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., moving in like weird patterns, spacing themselves evenly down the block. Am I losing my mind? The chalk spiraled outside my house. It extended halfway down the street, but no one admitted to drawing it, and I, for the life of me, couldn't catch someone doing it. Jason mailed me an envelope. Inside was one sentence. No instructions. I snapped. I screamed at him from my yard, called him a psychopath. Threatened to expose everything, and he didn't react, just wrote something in his notebook and nodded, like I'd completed a necessary step in his plan? I broke into his garage one night. I couldn't help it. Desperate for physical proof I could show someone, a police, a lawyer, anyone. Instead, I found stacks of unused props, blank envelopes, pre-written scenario prompts, dozens of them. He hasn't even used half of his material. Meaning, the simulation is not close to finished. There's phases planned for years to come, so I just took a look at everything. Showed them to Megan and Brooke the next day, and they stared at the images like they were looking at blank papers. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be seeing. Jason watched from his porch the entire time, smiles. I finally understood. Jason's goal was never control. It was predictability. If he can predict everyone's behavior, he can shape the entire neighbor's narrative. And I, the only true unpredictable element, was designated as the obstacle to remove. One morning, every neighbor received a blank envelope with a white card inside. Mine arrived that evening, but my card was black. I remembered from Jason's notes, white cards signify simulation completion and black cards meant continuation. That night, I heard knocking on the doors around the block, whispered conversations, and footsteps moving in synchronized patterns. Jason has not approached me since. He doesn't need to. The neighbors follow the conditions he created unconsciously now. Last night, I heard something outside. When I looked out my window, 5 neighbors were standing in my yard, evenly spaced, facing my home. They weren't moving, just standing there in the dark, so I turned on the porch light and they dispersed immediately like cockroaches, walking back to their house in perfect silence. People outside the neighborhood keep telling me to move, to just leave, but I've been researching Jason online. His LinkedIn mentions he's lived in 4 different states over 20 years. Each time he stayed 7 to 10 years before moving, and I found an old neighborhood blog from his previous address. People describing the same weird, coordinated behavior, the same strange surveillance feeling, and the same sense that something was orchestrating their interactions. He's done this before. Multiple times. He's perfected the system, then moves and starts over. I gotta call the police. I gotta call someone. I just sit in my house each night, feeling the neighborhood shift around me like something is moving. The simulation never ended. He just changed its format. The game continues beneath normal life now, quieter, more embedded. So I'm writing this because I need someone outside this street to know what's happening here, because I'm starting to forget which of my choices are actually mine. This morning, I left my house at 7:43. I don't remember checking the time, I just knew. When I came home, there was a white card on my porch with one word that says learning. I don't know if Jason left it or if I did. Alright guys, I told you. That was an insane story, but it never really happened. I mentioned in the beginning that there was a comment from OP's brother. So I'm going to read that to you guys now so you fully understand what happened. It says, I can't believe I'm finding out about this post like this. This is David, Lauren's brother, and I need everyone reading this to understand that none of what my sister described actually happened. Not the way she's telling it, see. Lauren has been in psychiatric care for the past 2 weeks following a severe mental health crisis. Our family has been completely devastated watching her disappear into these delusions. There is no neighbor named Jason. There's no neighborhood simulation. There's no laminated cards, no binders with her name on it, no chess pieces left at her mailbox, no wooden figures on a model neighborhood. Lauren lives alone in a small apartment complex, not on a suburban street with block parties. She moved there after her divorce 18 months ago and has been increasingly isolated ever since. The neighbors that she described to you guys, Megan, Katie, Brooke, Tyler, Brandon, Eric, I wrote them all down. These are not real people. Some of these are names of old coworkers that she had fallings out with years ago, and we think her mind has been reconstructing them as characters in this elaborate narrative. What actually happened is that Lauren started having signs of paranoid delusions around 6 months ago. She became convinced people were watching her, that her routines were being tracked, that, well, Ordinary coincidences were coordinated attacks, and she started finding patterns everywhere. I mean, license plates, the timing when neighbors left for work, the arrangement of objects in public spaces, and she believed a maintenance worker in her building was orchestrating surveillance. This is who Jason was based on, a real person who lives in her apartment building and has tried to be friendly, which she interpreted as suspicious. See, she broke into the building maintenance office looking for proof and was nearly arrested. That's when we knew something was seriously wrong. See, the binders and models she described finding were maintenance records and a fire escape diagram that she photographed and became convinced were evidence of an experiment. The chalk symbols that she kept mentioning, they appeared outside her door. It's normal. Apartment building markings left by utility workers during routine maintenance. But Lauren started obsessively photographing them and creating some elaborate theory about their meaning, which I didn't even know about till I read her post. We got her to the hospital after she was found at about 3 a.m. standing in the parking lot, arranging rocks and patterns and talking to herself about refusing the script. It's that detail that she mentioned in these posts, the last update. Well, that actually happened, but she was just doing it herself, not witnessing neighbors do it. The doctor says that she's been experiencing a combination of severe anxiety, paranoid delusions, and possible dissociative episodes, likely triggered by the isolation and stress following her divorce and job loss, which she hasn't mentioned in any of the posts because, in her mind, she's rewritten that period of her life. She's been writing in notebooks obsessively, pages and pages of evidence that are really just coincidental observations she's connected into conspiracies. Reading these posts absolutely broke my heart. Because I can see her intelligence, her analytical mind eating itself, and she's taking her own very real gift for pattern recognition and critical thinking and turning them against herself, finding threats that don't exist. And if you comment supporting her reality, please understand. You may have reinforced the delusion that are keeping her from accepting help. Lauren, if you somehow see this, we love you. We're no part of any simulation, and there is no final boss. You're sick, but you can get better. Please trust us. Guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was not going to release this story until I found this comment because it just makes everything make sense. I thought the story was fabricated, fake, some social writing experiment. I don't know, but no. OP was having a mental breakdown. Guys, let me know what you think about this story. It's unlike any story we've ever read. It's not a cheating story. It's not an inheritance story. It's not a mother-in-law problem. It's not a wedding drama. No. It's not an HOA drama. No. It's much, much deeper than that. Guys, let me know what you think about it in the comment section. And, well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. And, of course, remember one thing. It's cool to be kind. Peace.